So I do kind of want to jump into, the why you got into this. And I always like to understand people's backstory and, where they came from and understanding why this was so important to you. And it was based on a life experience. So can you dive in a little bit in terms of your parents' divorce and what that did to you and trying to encourage people not to do what your parents did? Because that's part of this, right?
Sure, sure. So my parents went through their divorce when I was in my late teens. And I know a lot of people say, oh, when they're really young, that's when all the damage is done. It could be done at any time, depending on how the parents react, right? And how they cope with a change, how they respond to one another. So, it really came as a shock to my sister and I. And things were digressed in their relationship during those teen years. And when they started officially their divorce, probably in my college and then throughout law school. And it was brutal. A lot of depression, a lot of acting out on both parents. I think a lot of my sister and I were parentified. I don't know if we have to break that down. I think it's sort of similar to what's being said, where we became more of the parents instead of the children in the family unit. And what ended up happening is my parents were utilizing two really strong litigating attorneys from Manhattan. They really lost communication, got very disrespectful to one another. And I think what changed the trajectory of my career when I was in school is that I felt that some of the advice and some of the questions that was being asked of one of my parents was just too much for them at that time. And they were not thinking straight. They were in a very bad place emotionally. My sister and I were extremely scared. And I reached out to that professional and that attorney and said, listen, they can't make these decisions. Can you just speak to them and have them maybe suggest that they seek therapy? Because I'm worried. We're worried that they may do something to themselves, and we're worried. And the attorney, which I was really surprised, said to me, "Butt out. This is none of your business," and hung up. And that was while I was in law school. And so I think after that experience, I really got jaded. I really felt like, wow, is this what I'm contributing to? My vision of attorneys is, to protect others, to enforce the law, to make sure everybody's rights are protected. And this is how they're treated. No wonder, is this how that parent is being treated by the attorney? I myself started wondering whether I wanted to continue the study of law. And I identified, without really knowing what it was, that we really, in the practice of law, the thing that is lacking is the empathy. It's really understanding that when you're working with somebody, while you may want to win the fight in court, maybe you don't like the adversary's attorney, you've got an issue with them, you want to prove something. I don't know. There's so much involved, that sometimes people forget that you're working with humans, you're working with a family. And we really need to pause and always remember the difficult time that people are in, because human nature, most of us don't like change and we need time to adapt. And we need to keep that at the forefront. So I thought that the best way to approach any type of conflict was through an understanding of psychology, conflict, and then the law. And that led me into mediation, which is what I feel covers that. And, but I will tell you that, one of the things that saddened me the most is that my parents ended up with, really at the end of the day, a traditional agreement after years and years of fighting and hundreds of thousands of dollars,
Can you
spent.
say how that was? Can you say that number again? Hundreds and thousands.
Thousands of dollars. And I think the resentment to this day is that was less for them to divide. They had less in that bucket to share between them to pay for things. And there was so much resentment that still carries with them to this day. And I will tell you, my whole life has been impacted by the way that things were approached. And my sister as well, and my nephews, because my parents can't be in the room together, and when they are, it's really awkward and they don't speak and they're uncomfortable and their new spouses are uncomfortable. It's for everybody. We've never forgotten that they're divorced. Put it to you that way. No one's ever moved on from that. And so it really is important for me in my practice. And I do feel very strongly that there's no way that that's what I'm going to leave as my mark in the world. I really want to be here to help as best as I can. And I feel like my comedian and I are on the same page. We have the same mission. And, we really strive to help people make that change in their life more comfortable for them so that they can be better for their children.
Yeah, I, completely agree. And, the basis of Better Than Bitter and the platform that I've built and the scalability of what I've built is because, you only have a certain amount of hours in your day, right? You and your co-mediator and everybody who kind of believes in both of our missions in terms of changing the divorce dialogue, having more access to amicable resolutions or learning how to have a more amicable resolution, how to kind of move through your emotional divorce to reach to a place of acceptance and forgiveness before you move into your legal divorce, because the only person who's going to suffer is you. If you haven't not forgiven the other person, but the forgiveness you have to create for yourself to allow for you to lift that burden of resentment and anger in terms of being able to not carry that forward into your post-divorce life, because the only person that's going to suffer if you do is you and your kids.
Exactly.
Right. And so I've created this 5-step game plan course. It's these 5 specific steps. And the last step is getting prepped for your legal agreement, your legal negotiation. But the 4 steps leading up to that is so scaling that ability and access to that course to hundreds and thousands of people. So when they get to you, they're ready, right? And they're ready to move forward in an amicable way, because when you step into a legal process and you're so emotionally charged and you want to stick it to them, it never works, right? I mean, you're just going to end up sticking it to yourself with the hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of legal fees. And you're going to end up, like you said, with this traditional divorce. I sat next to a woman a few months ago, 7 years, $1.2 million. And she ended up with a house and the kids.
Yeah.
If you are with litigators, if you have hired litigation attorneys, they will find problems and drama where they can. If you've got the money, they will spend it. I mean, I hate to say that, and that's really general. I'm sure there's many, many good litigation attorneys out there that are ethical and compassionate and empathetic. But in general, I always tell people, start with mediation. Get as far as you can. And if there's one little thing at the end that maybe you can't agree on, great. Have your attorneys go at it. Hopefully they can come to an agreement before you go into that hearing and you can still have it uncontested. But if there's one thing that you just can't come to an agreement on, go to arbitration as an option, or potentially go get, the litigation, but make that the last step. Make that the last draw. I mean, do you ever find people who maybe get to 90% with you and you're like, all right, we've tried this a number of times, so maybe we just need the last 10% of assistance with some help from somebody else.
That does happen. And I agree with you wholehearted. And it's not for self-serving purposes. It's just, I really genuinely believe it, that people should try and start with mediation, because you can take 1 or 2 issues and either litigate that or, like you said, arbitrate it. I think that really hits the nail on the head. That is what I tell people. I also tell people, if you're concerned, what happens if it doesn't work? Well, try it for a few hours. If you're not comfortable with it, it's a voluntary process. You can end, but at least you give yourselves an opportunity to take control, to learn, to understand, to gain a better understanding where your spouse is coming from, because that may help that transition, and that will help the whole family unit and yourself.